And thank you for joining me in the room. I'm really excited about this podcast. And thanks for joining me live, by the way, for those of you who were able to join me this morning or join me right now, I should say at 9:15. Here's the quote. I have three very important quotes actually to set this up regarding Kamala Harris. And I apologize. I always default to Kamala because for my 30 years of watching this woman and reporting on this woman, at least in the beginning, she was always known as Kamala, but now I know it's Kamala. But here's the quote. Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Now, no doubt you've heard that phrase before. It was penned by John Acton, a 19th century English historian and British politician, also known as Lord Acton. He's also responsible for two other quotes. Despotic power is always accompanied by the corruption of morality. Let me repeat that because this is very important as we start to talk about Kamala. Despotic power, that describes her to a T. It's always accompanied by a corruption of morality. I'll prove this in just a moment. Another quote, authority that does not exist for liberty. Authority that does not exist for liberty is what? It's not authority, but it's force. All three of these quotes represent not just the modern Democratic Party, but especially their new anointed leader, Kamala Harris. And you know from recent episodes, I'm hardly a fan. I had a radio program in San Francisco on the first all conservative radio station in America, KSFO. I've been constructively critical of this woman for decades. And I've watched Kamala Harris use whatever means possible to climb the political ladder of success. She was a progressive DA long before George Soros started handpicking these people and funding their campaigns, assuring their victory. She was, of course, one of the DAs the first DA, to start ruining a city, the sanctuary city of San Francisco. When she was the Attorney General of California, she was probably the most liberal Attorney General the United States of America has ever seen. She's brazenly to the left of Bernie Sanders. And regarding those kooks like AOC and the squad, she may as well be their mentor. In fact, for all I know, she is their mentor. And she was raised by two people who immigrated to America. Now, nothing, of course, against immigrants. My parents immigrated to this country. Yours probably did as well. But unlike mine and yours, her parents did not come here to cherish the natural laws of life, liberty, and or I should say the natural rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Her parents came here to destroy them. Her father became a Stanford professor of economics, Marxian economics. This is a woman who demands the kind of respect that you associate with a despot. When she was the AG in San Francisco, it's widely reported that staff members were to report to her every morning with something like a salute saying, "Good morning, General." Now she's right where she's always dreamed to be. You notice this? Her party evaded the traditional nomination process to essentially anoint her as leader. And given the massive propaganda campaign being generated by the establishment media, and the Silicon Valley social media centers, not to mention the legalized methods of cheating that have been instituted in many states around the United States, friends, I've got bad news for you. She could win this election. And if she wins this election, we are in big trouble. Now, I'm going to continue this with some important information that you've likely not heard before. But let me just first say this. On Thursday, it'll be episode 254. I'll be releasing a new episode with one of the two people who have ever debated Kamala Harris. The last guy to debate her, a serious debate, the last guy to debate her was Mike Pence. And Mike, in robotic but articulate fashion, he essentially said nothing of substance. You can't say he beat her in this debate, but that's Mike Pence. The guy who mopped up the floor with her was in 2016. He was running for Senate against Kamala Harris in the state of California. He was the former California GOP leader. The hierarchy in the California GOP did not like him because he was very conservative. Most of the California GOP leadership, they're rhinos. But Tom Del Beccaro was not. He's a very successful attorney. He's an author. He's got a new book out right now, The Lessons of American Civilization. And I'm going to be interviewing Tom, talking about his debate with Kamala, and he'll give us a lot of stuff that you've never heard on this woman before. That's episode 254. Now, back to Kamala. This is why she must not win this election. And I'm going to return to Lord Acton for just a moment. And I'll look at my screen for the notes. Despotic power is always accompanied by a corruption of morality. Despots think they're God. They have no room for morality. Now, here's another quote. This is from Jean Rostand, a 19th century French historian. I'm sorry if I butchered his name. I don't speak French, but I like to read the guy's books. He said this: kill one man and you're a murderer. Kill millions of men and you're a conqueror. Kill them all and you're a god. Now, I'm not implying that Kamala Harris is going to kill anyone. I'm just saying people in pursuit of power disregard the lives of others. So let's look at Kamala's ads right now. She's running for president. She's not talking about the economy. She's not talking about illegal immigration. She's not talking about crime in our cities. She's not talking about our standing on the world stage. She's not talking about having a military superpower, the kind of military that would cause the bad guys to quake in their boots. I mean, she let her city of San Francisco and the state go to hell. Do you know how many businesses have left San Francisco? It all started with Kamala. The wild sanctuary city policies that were making people unsafe. People started leaving, closing up shop. Now you've got this ridiculous rule in the state whereby you can steal up to almost $1,000 worth of merchandise and only be punished as a misdemeanor. It's caused stores like Nordstrom. Nordstrom had its flagship store for 35 years in San Francisco on Market Street, gone. Market Street looks like a homeless bazaar. The financial district of San Francisco, 35% 35% vacancy rate. This was an international financial center. CVS, Walgreens, Target, Whole Foods in San Francisco, gone. People are leaving that state by the droves, and that's causing your state's real estate prices to rise. And it's not just the conservatives are bailing out, many liberals are bailing out as well. But I would just want to tell you something. Kamala Harris's priorities are rooted in immorality. You look at her campaign ads, you look at them. For example, first thing she almost always talks about in every ad: abortion, check. Those horrifically damaging reproductive freedom drugs that women are being encouraged to take, check. Transsexual surgeries, she's all for it, especially for prisoners. They defy nature. They maim the body, check. Welfare for all, which is really feeble-minded slavery, check. And of course, free healthcare for all, which will deliver a brand of healthcare that will make you pray that you're never seriously ill, check. And then this quote: authority that does not exist for liberty is not authority but force. You see, liberty means having a government that first and foremost upholds natural law and natural rights. Natural rights are our life. Natural rights are liberty. Natural rights are the pursuit of happiness. Natural law is that thing inside all of us that knows the difference between good and evil, a truth and a lie. That's the thing that we all know, but many decide to ignore that thing in our heart that knows the difference between good and evil, truth and a lie. Kamala is one of those people. This is all about her. This is all about power. Now, here's what I fear from a Kamala Harris administration. Oh, she'd be a force, all right, but not for liberty, a force for evil. China is in trouble right now. Economically, China's unbalanced economy is tanking. They want Taiwan. Why do they want Taiwan? Because it's the center, it's the absolute center for semiconductor construction, manufacturing, distribution. That's where they do it, Taiwan. If they could take Taiwan, it would rearrange their economy altogether. It would give them the kind of financial success that they need to fulfill the goal of the Communist Party from 1949. The goal of the Communist Party in China in 1949, dominate the West. They could dominate the West by taking Taiwan and uprighting their teetering economy. They want to do this by 2049, the centennial of their communist regime. They would need a willing participant in the White House. That would not be Donald Trump. I wouldn't be surprised, my friends, if they've already capitalized on Kamala Harris's lust for power. Would it not surprise any of us if a deal has been already struck? Kamala, you turn your back when we go after Taiwan, and in the meantime, we will supply you with boatloads of propaganda, maybe even some cyber cheating in exchange for future cooperation. We want you in the White House. You know, regarding cyber attacks, most people have forgotten this or were never aware. In 2020, we were hit with a major cyber attack in the United States of America. It hit our government, including the military. It hit infrastructure. It hit major corporations. To this day, have never, at least they've never told us who was behind it. It was huge, for the most part, swept under the rug. But many believe that China was behind the attack. And why shouldn't we be surprised? Sun Tzu, in The Art of War, says spies are useful everywhere, and foreknowledge must be obtained from people who know the conditions of the enemy. Everyone in the Silicon Valley knows Chinese spies are everywhere. For decades, we've known this. And then during the recent border invasions, during the Biden-Harris administration, thousands of military-aged Chinese men have slipped into our country, again, by the thousands. We have to assume that there has been some level of success in terms of spying in this country after all these years. But isn't it interesting how things have flipped? If you say something like that aloud, oh, you'll be accused of discrimination, racism. But let's imagine Kamala Harris in the White House. Let's imagine her having made a deal with the devil. China conducts a cyber attack, knocks out all communication in our fleet in the Pacific, invades Taiwan with little resistance. Not a single American dies. And that's important because that way there's no threat of military force from the US commander in chief, who, by the way, will acknowledge China's the United States one China policy. And the one China policy acknowledges that the people of Taiwan are Chinese and that it's an island that once belonged to China and therefore should belong to China once again. You know, it's like the delusion that has swept so much of the world today. Despite thousands and thousands of years of history, clearly illustrating that the Jewish people were in Israel The land known as Israel, long before the Arabs, long before the so-called Palestinians, they're somehow occupiers. This is why Karl Marx said history means nothing. It's better to rewrite it for your own means. You see, leaders like Xi in China and Putin in Russia and Un in North Korea and Khomeini in Iran, they don't like leaders like Kamala Harris unless they can use them for their own good. They don't respect leaders who are easily compromised like a Kamala Harris. They don't like leaders who talk out of both sides of their mouth like Kamala Harris and so many others. What they respect are tough talking, absolutely determined to win, arrogant bullies. The kind of people who stand up after an assassination attempt and raise their fist into the air with blood on their face and shout, "Fight." Those are the type of leaders that our enemies fear. They don't want Donald Trump in the White House because they fear how he would respond to force. Kamala Harris would cave. Trump would retaliate swiftly and effectively. Not with an endless war, but let's get the job done now. You know, taking a little bigger picture, just a little wider look through the lens. With Kamala Harris in the White House, it might look something like this. America's critical infrastructure is hit with a cyber attack, accompanied by organized and trained agents attacking physical infrastructure. We're talking power plants, dams, bridges. And then simultaneously, hit teams, which are likely in the country as we speak, thanks to these past 4 years of an open border, begin striking those who seek to rebel forcefully. And a Kamala Harris in the White House would be paralyzed. I just want to say something really quick here. You know, the Bible actually predicted that Israel would someday rise from the ashes of history and become a nation again. Do you know that? It's in the book of Ezekiel. It's in the Old Testament, ancient book. That prophecy was fulfilled in 1948 when Israel was reestablished as a nation. It had not been a nation for a couple thousand years. But so there's a Bible prophecy that's for real, but the Bible also prophesies something else. There will come a time when Israel no longer has an ally. This is also in the book of Ezekiel. And all nations will turn against her. And we're seeing that more and more as we speak. The US is clearly Israel's strongest ally. After that, support from countries that have diplomatic relations with the Jewish state are tepid at best. But I could see, and I'm sure you could as well, a Kamala Harris turning its back, a Kamala Harris administration turning its back on Israel. And at that moment, says the Lord in the Bible, that'll be the beginning of the end for planet Earth. But not to leave you on a scary note, I just want to leave you with a bit of everlasting hope. Jesus said this in Luke 21:28. Now, when these things happen, look up and lift your heads, because your redemption draws near. I know you are hoping for the best for these United States of America. And I know many of you are praying for this country as well. Some are probably even fasting. I recommend all of the above. I've been hearing this for years. This is the most important election ever. But this clearly is the most important election ever. And those who love freedom around the world, those who love liberty around the world, those who want a strong America around the world are watching this carefully and watching this closely. Thank you for joining me in this live podcast. I hope you'll follow. I hope you'll share. And I do thank you for your prayers. It's much appreciated. I look forward to our next podcast with Tom Del Beccaro. Thanks for joining me, friends. God bless your day.